Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is the day the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Another day's journey, so glad about it and so grateful for your joining me for another Real Talk with Pastor Waller. I am so excited about these conversations that we're having during this political cycle. So, obviously, thank all of you for joining us as we had our third congressional seat or third district congressional conversation. It was a wonderful success, and we appreciate you. But that does leave another seat open that is relevant to us here at Enon, and that is the 200th legislative district. That is the area where we serve, well, one part of Enon. Enon is actually in two districts. So Enon West has their own state rep, and Enon East has a state rep. At Enon East, our state rep was Sister Fitzgerald, and then Brother Chris Rabb, who is now running for the congressional seat. So that is leaving the 200th open. So for the next few weeks, we're going to be talking with the persons that are running for that seat. Obviously, you have heard from Kasim, and now today I want you to hear from another young man who is running for this seat. His name is Christopher Johnson. Very excited to know him, and we're going to look into and give you an opportunity to know him as well. What's my goal? My goal is to make sure that in the area where I serve as pastor, we have political engagement on every level. All politics are local. Of course, everybody's going to show up when it's time to vote for the president. Everybody's going to show up when we vote for those federal seats. But most of your life is going to be impacted by who sits in city council, who sits in the state rep seat, who is your mayor. A lot of what happens in your life is impacted by the judges that you put on the bench, even if you never have to stand in front of them. So much of life is impacted by decisions that they make as well. And so we're here to talk about the state rep seat. This is something that we'll be voting for, and we want you to be engaged. And today we've got another young man. His name is Christopher Johnson, who is running for the 200th legislative district. Chris, welcome to Real Talk with Pastor Waller.
Reverend Waller, thank you for having me here. Glad to be on Real Talk, the podcast. And I just want to thank you for your leadership to our community here in Philadelphia and around the state as well. And really grateful for the work that Enon has done to support our young people and our families here in our community as well. So it's good to be here.
Thank you, man. So you are running for the seat.
Yes.
Who are you? Why are you doing it? Why do you think you can do this job? Give us the journey.
That's a good question. So I'm 33 years old as of today.
Okay.
Born and raised here in Philadelphia. I actually grew up in the North Philadelphia neighborhood, the Yorktown neighborhood in North Philadelphia, which was a community established in the late 1950s and early 1960s with an explicit goal through a public and private partnership and faith-based partnership to help African Americans get access to home ownership and housing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a neighborhood that I grew up in, tight-knit community. But then, after building my own life and going off to college and returning home to Philadelphia, I've made Mount Airy my home, a neighborhood that I deeply care about. I live not too far from Enon on for Germantown Avenue, an area where there's great diversity of people, of thought, and economic status who are contributing in so many ways to our communities, to our business corridors. And through their contributions, they make it worth living here and excited to be here and worth fighting for. And so that's who I am and where I am from. I'm also a man of faith. I grew up in church in the Adventist church, where me and my family would be in church every Saturday, not Sunday.
Right. That's right.
Living and learning and being amongst many friends as well. Church was a place that grounded me in faith and in service. It was also a space that kept me and my friends and my siblings out of trouble. It was a place
Got
where,
you.
we would go and gather and fellowship and have recreation and also just learn. My mother, who raised me and my three siblings, my older brother Corey, who's a pastor
Mm-hmm.
here
Mm-hmm.
in the neighborhood at the Germantown Church, who you know quite well.
Absolutely.
I'm the middle child, so I'm often the swing vote between me and my siblings. And I have a younger sister who
Okay.
is also a writer and poet and professor. Um, and so my mother, as I mentioned, was an anchor in my family. Obviously, she was a youth leader at our church. She really cared deeply about serving and supporting at-risk youth.
Got
Um,
you.
and so through those experiences, it taught me there's the power of service and building community and caring for young people. I'm also the proud grandson of an educator. My grandmother
Mm-hmm.
was born and raised in Greenwood, South Carolina. She attended Oakwood University, first in her family to go off to college in the 1950s
Yeah.
to study early childhood education, made her way to Philadelphia, and actually for over 30 years taught and was an educator here in Northwest Philadelphia at the old Larchwood Church, which is
Yeah.
right off of Thorwine and Sedgwick Avenue. And so from those experiences, from living and learning after my grandmother and watching my mother, how she really cared for young people and serving at-risk young people, gave me an understanding of what service can do and how it can help transform lives and break systems of inequality. And so I've tried my best to try to walk in their footsteps over the course of my life and my young career.
Mm-hmm.
I myself attended the Oakwood University, which is an HBCU down in Huntsville, Alabama, where as you're walking onto the campus, you see three words. You see the words enter to learn, and as you're exiting the campus, you'll see another three words
Mm-hmm.
depart to serve.
Hmm.
And upon graduating 10 years ago from Oakwood, from an HBCU, where we learned a lot about, you know, carrying on the mantle for faith and justice and service to our community and to our people, I've tried my best to embody that spirit,
Yeah.
departing to serve,
Mm-hmm.
returning here to Philadelphia to help make our city, a city that raised me, a city that I really love, a city that I deeply cherish, a place of opportunity for everyone. And I've tried to
Okay.
do that in different capacities.
Okay.
One serving as a district office director for a noun speaker, Joanna McClinton,
Mm.
where I led a district office serving nearly 65,000 constituents, primarily during the pandemic, during the COVID-19 pandemic, where so many families were fearful of their status,
Yeah.
fearful of a healthcare crisis that was running rampant through our communities and all across the world. People were facing job displacement, housing displacement, and we wanted to make sure that our office was readily responsible and responsive to the needs of thousands of families as well. In doing that, I wanted to continue to serve and make the city of Philadelphia and to serve our communities as well. So after serving as a district office director, I worked as a regional aide to our former U.S. Senator Bob Casey for almost 4 years,
Okay.
in which coming out of the pandemic, we were thinking about how can we help our communities recover from the loss that we experienced. Schools were closed, businesses were shuttered, folks were facing housing displacement, a lot of challenges that our communities were facing. And I absolutely loved that work, partly because the senator's focus was first on recovering our economy,
Mm-hmm.
recovering our
Mm-hmm.
communities, but also he was a champion for the five freedoms for America's children, which was a policy portfolio focused on making sure that children could have the freedom to learn, freedom to be economically secure, freedom from hunger, freedom to really live a life of opportunity. And so part of that work was making sure that I would stand at the intersection with the senator between federal dollars that would come out of Washington and
Mm-hmm.
really making sure that we can bring those dollars to communities that need it the most,
Okay.
whether it's a school district or schools that are in need because we have a number of aging facilities and a lot of challenges and
Right.
environmental challenges that our schools are facing, or if there's a nonprofit that is looking to uplift and help with the maternal health care issues that we're facing in our communities, we wanted to invest in making sure that we can expand doula care here in the greater Philadelphia region and doing the same thing and making sure that our public transit system and SEPTA could have the resources that they need to be strong and to
Mm-hmm.
be more vibrant and more accessible for our communities. And so that's the work that we have been doing. And I'm grateful for that opportunity. What I currently do is for the past year, after serving in the senator's office, I've been leading as the director of state and federal government relations for our school district here in Philadelphia,
Okay.
leading our state and federal advocacy, going to Harrisburg, going to Washington, and fighting to make sure that we can have adequate funding and resources to, as I mentioned, improve our aging school buildings here in
Yeah.
Philadelphia, to invest in programs that will improve student outcomes for our kids, because we all know that an education is a pathway to opportunity. It's a
Yeah.
pathway to promise. And it's a way in which we can continue to let the light shine in our young people, which is really important to us.
So, and that's important.
Yeah.
th- you are right now wrestling. You know, we're
Yep.
all wrestling with the decisions that you all have made, and
Yep.
I won't put you on the spot for those decisions.
Hmm.
But could you give us any insight as the difficulty of those decisions with,
Yep.
you know, having to deal with those buildings,
Hmm.
co-locating
Hmm.
schools, and so forth?
Yeah, they are real challenges that the communities are facing.
Yeah.
Anytime you talk about addressing facilities, or you talk about the issue around closures, or we're
Yeah.
looking to modernize school buildings, obviously families and communities are going to have deep concern, and we have to acknowledge those concerns as
Yeah.
well, because it creates some real challenges for families. But I think about as we're making these decisions in the wake of decades of disinvestment from the state
That's right.
into public education. As you may know, and many others may know, for decades, the state had actually underfunded a number of our most vulnerable school districts here in Philadelphia and across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. In 2023, the Commonwealth Court issued a landmark ruling, which basically confirmed what we knew for a long time, which was our school district had been systematically, unconstitutionally unfunded significantly. And for the city of Philadelphia, for our school district, that number, based on a funding formula commission, was $1.2 billion.
Wow.
$1.2 billion is the amount of funding that the state owes our school districts because of that, as a result of that Commonwealth Court ruling.
Yeah.
And so our job now is to try to claw those dollars back from the state so that we can reinvest them in modernizing our aging school buildings. So whether we're talking about A.B. Day or Emlyn or
Mhm.
C.W. Henry, Emlyn School, just not too far from here, is actually proudly celebrating its 100th birthday this year,
Wow.
which is really exciting.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
also, the buildings might have some challenges. They need
Mhm.
to, upgrade their HVAC systems so that we can provide adequate heating in the
Yeah.
winter and cool our buildings during the summertime. We had a very intense winter, which we're now sort of thawing out of, and we would get a knot of calls and complaints around boilers that would, go out of commission, and it costs a lot to maintain those types of buildings, and so we need to make sure that we can get adequate funding and investments from the state in order to ensure that our kids and our educators can work and learn in safe and vibrant and welcoming spaces, because how we invest tells us how we invest in our school buildings and our public spaces tells us what we think about our communities and our kids. If
Yeah.
we allow our kids to walk in spaces that are dilapidated, what are we telling them? That's what we were told when I was coming up as well. If we were walking in spaces that weren't really nice and thriving and welcoming,
Mhm.
it does send a message. And so I feel now at 33, within my generation, that there is a responsibility that my generation has to make sure that we build a society, build communities that are more fair, more safe, and more just. We can't just look at our parents' or grandparents' generation to do this. It is now our time to step up and say, what can I do to make sure that we can right the wrongs of the past and build a brighter future for tomorrow?
Thank you for that. And thank you for your perspective
Hmm.
on that. And I need you all to know on that conversation, while I can't speak for the rest of the district and I
Hmm.
can't speak for every decision made, what I do know about the co locating of schools in our area where we have our hands on it, we're going to be working with the administration. Co locating is something that has been done in other areas. It's been done very successfully in New York City uh, and can be done here if we have the right people on the job, not just the school district, but Men Who Care of Germantown, Action Justice Collective. There are a number of other organizations. We're going to work to make sure that the children in the Northwest are taken care of. And so we're committed to that. And so we continue to keep that in prayer. And yes, you did hear him say something. And you all know me. We're going to talk about him and just name it. This is Christopher Johnson, who is Corey Johnson's brother. Corey Johnson, who is my son-in-law, married to Morgan Waller, Morgan Johnson. And so I do know this young man, and I do know the quality of person that he is. This should not be misunderstood as an endorsement, because I'm still the same Pastor Waller. I want you to make your decisions around who you hear. But I will not hide the fact, nor will I want anybody to think that I'm hiding the fact that we're related. And so that's what that is. And I'm grateful and proud of him. He's not a really good ball player, but
we can debate that.
We can debate it. You did win the last time.
We did.
All right, but you bought a ringer.
Okay.
Anyhow, we have this ball game. My son-in-law and his boys against me and my boys every Christmas. One day, one ball game.
Yep.
I'm winning the series. I just lost the last time. But anyhow,
We'll pick it up in December.
there we go.
We'll tie the series.
We'll pick it up. We'll see what happens. So,
Yeah.
how do you understand the role of the state rep?
Yeah.
What is the job of the state rep, and why do you want to do that job?
It's important, and it's a good question. The answer to that question is in the title. It's to represent the interests of our district. The district, the 200th legislative district, is a community that includes all of Mount Airy, West Oak Lane, parts of Chestnut Hill, and a small neighborhood called Bluebell Hill as well. And this is a neighborhood, this is a district that is a great sense of diversity, diversity of thought, diversity of background, racial diversity, orientation, all of it. You can find it here in our district. And it means making sure that you are present and available and listening to the needs and concerns of your constituents, and marching down to Harrisburg, or taking the train over to Harrisburg, or driving through those fields, getting to Harrisburg, and registering the opinions and thoughts of your district, of our community, to our fellow leaders. Part of that, and a significant part of that, is passing a budget. And as we always hear, a budget can be a moral document. It can be a showing of your priorities, what you care about.
That's right.
And most significantly here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, as it relates to funding and budgeting, is the state plays a significant role in funding of public education. Just here in Philadelphia, close to 45 to 50% of the school district's budget comes from state dollars. And so who you elect at the state level, whether it's state representative or Senate or even governor, is really important. Because as I mentioned in the past, in past years, there were legislative bodies who did not care so much about vulnerable communities or school districts like the School District of Philadelphia. And they showed that by how they funded our schools, or how well they did not fund our schools.
Got you.
And so I think now we're in this position where we have a real opportunity to build and draw down more dollars and invest harder, so that we can ensure that our school districts are safe and welcoming for our kids. Also, in terms of funding, making sure that our public transit system has what it needs in order to be safe and vibrant and accessible, which is another significant issue that we've been facing here in Pennsylvania, and particularly in our communities here in Mount Airy, West Oak Lane, and Chestnut Hill. I'll tell you where I live. The regional rail line that I take, that's the Chestnut Hill West line. I usually take the Carpenter Lane train in the mornings to get into the city to get to work. And for a number of years, when SEPTA was going through its financial struggles and needed state funding, the Chestnut Hill West line was one of the lines that was on the list to have service cuts. And that would create an enormous strain on our economy. It will make it really difficult for our neighbors to be able to get to work or get to their appointments. And 50,000 students just across the city of Philadelphia use public transit to get to school or to get to their college campuses or so forth. And so making sure that you have folks who understand the importance of our public goods and investing in them, whether it's our schools, our public transit system, our libraries, our parks and recreation centers, are really essential. And I have the lived experience of uh, going to public schools, going
Mm-hmm.
to schools here in Philadelphia, and understanding how important it is to make sure that those buildings and our educators are well supported. As I mentioned, I take the Chestnut Hill West Line and at Carpenter Lane every, most days just to try to get into work.
Yeah.
Growing up, when I was in high school, I caught the 57 bus, took it all the way down to the Broad Street subway, got off at the Girard station, and then went to school every day. That
Gotcha.
was my path.
Yeah.
And so the idea of disinvesting in those types of systems, which are critical to getting people to and from, is deeply troubling. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's something that I will continue to fight for. And it's really essential that you elect folks who really understand that and know that. And that's the role that the state representative can play in making a difference in our communities.
Thank you for that. Now, you brought up something that what I found not being from Philadelphia,
Mhm.
when you're not from Philadelphia,
Mhm.
people from Philadelphia will let you know you're not from Philadelphia. And the only proof that you're from Philadelphia is what high school you went to.
Yeah.
So, um, help us understand your school experience
Yeah.
and, what schools you went to and what high school
Yep.
you went to.
That's a great question. That's what people ask. Where are you from?
Yep.
And which school did you go to?
That's right.
Like that's how you are able
That's
to.
how you locate
You
yourself
can
in
locate
Philadelphia.
somebody. You can see who they are.
That's
tell
right.
you a little bit about them.
That's right.
And I think that's an interesting question because I actually have experienced the full spectrum of education here in Philadelphia
Okay.
growing up. Um, and for my early childhood education, between the years of pre-K to third grade,
Okay.
I went to Larchwood School, which is a private Adventist school right on
Yep.
Thorwine and Sedgwick.
Mm-hmm.
So I, went to the school in the neighborhood, but not with the public school.
Mm-hmm.
And then my mom can no longer afford a private education, and she's raising three kids
Yeah.
primarily on her own with the help of our village. And so I attended the Harrison Elementary School, which was my
Okay.
neighborhood school down in Yorktown, down in North Philadelphia.
Okay.
And this is during the time of this sort of the education reform movement, in which in the early 2000s, we saw a lot of changes in our education system. We saw new charters start to sprout up and public schools start to close or
Mhm.
shutter, and
Yeah.
just the system started changing. And I was one of the students who was kind of living through that system, which has informed my focus on making sure that we really stabilize and invest in our public education system now.
Okay.
But to continue the story, after spending time at Harrison Elementary School, which eventually closed, unfortunately, I attended the KIPP Philadelphia Schools, which is a
Okay.
network of public charters here in Philadelphia,
Okay.
through eighth grade. And then worked really hard, got a lot of support while I was there, and was able to become a scholarship student to attend St. Joseph's Preparatory School, a Jesuit high school right off of 17th and Girard Avenue.
Got you.
Which was a really interesting experience going to St. Joe's Prep. It was the first time in my life that I sat in a classroom and looked around the room, and most of the students in the class did
Mhm.
not look like me and came
Got
from
you.
a very different background and neighborhoods that I was not familiar with.
Mm.
And I think it, in so many ways, um, highlighted the sort of there are disparities in terms of funding, in
Yeah.
terms of resources that schools and school systems face. And I was through my sort of my career, through my experiences as a kid, saw those different
Mhm.
disparities, saw
Mhm.
those different advantages and challenges as well. After attending St. Joe's Prep, as I mentioned, attended Oakwood University,
Yep.
and most recently earned my Master's of Public Administration from the Fels Institute of Government at the University of Pennsylvania.
Wow. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you for that, and thank you for taking us on a journey with you to know who you are and where you're located. Is there anything that I haven't asked you
Mhm.
that you think people need to know from you or about you
Yeah.
as we make our decision
Mhm.
about whether to vote in your direction for the 200th legislative district? Is there anything else you need to let us know about?
I think it's also just important to know, and we didn't get a chance to
Okay.
touch on this, but um, when I was in middle school,
Okay.
one of the things that really changed my life was being able to join a jazz band.
Mm.
When I was in eighth grade, the school where I was attending started a jazz band and had open auditions. And I thought as a young kid, I said, I think I love beats. I think I know rhythm. I know music and sound a little bit. So I signed up just to audition to be a drummer.
Hmm.
Did that, made the band. I was the second lead drummer
Hmm.
in the percussion section,
Okay.
holding down the rhythm section. And that experience really did change my life in a lot of ways. And it also changed my ears because once you start learning music and once you start
Yeah.
exploring music, it really does take you into a lot of different
Yeah.
spaces.
Yeah.
And, um, after going to middle school and through high school, and I kind of stopped in college, I just kept playing music. I played
Okay.
drums at church,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
even till this day, I still care deeply about jazz music and funk, and understanding that Philadelphia has a really deep legacy
Absolutely.
here and contributing to music as well. I remember going to Relish for my 18th birthday, the old Relish in West
Yeah.
Oak
Yeah.
Lane,
That's right.
because I wanted to hear live music as well. And one of the reason why I brought that up is because I think that we need to ensure that our kids can have a well-rounded academic experience. Yes, it's
Absolutely.
important for us to ensure that we're investing in math and science and reading and making sure that our kids, have the basics and fundamentals to go on through middle school, high school, into
Right.
college or into their careers. But I think part of what we need to do is also invest in arts and music education so that kids can see that, there's a way that they can explore more and
Yeah.
learn more about themselves and contribute and add color to this world. And I think that that's also essential for us today.
Thank you for that. I agree. Everyone is talking about STEM education,
Yeah.
but we argue you ought to have STEAM
Hmm.
education.
Hmm.
You add art to that. And I want to thank you for that because that is important.
It is.
Music is inherently humanizing.
Yeah.
In our community, I think you need to learn to play an instrument, even if you never make it to a group,
Hmm.
even if you never make any money doing it. There's something that we learn. It helps with your thinking,
Hmm.
it helps with math, being able to read music, being able to work with others.
Hmm.
I'm grateful for my experience with music, even
Yeah.
with different instruments, because
Yeah.
it teaches me to hear the music and repair to people differently.
Hmm.
It's one thing to be the singer out front,
Hmm.
it's another thing to be the horn player in the back,
Yeah.
just hitting some beats,
Yeah.
because you're not always the out front singer. Sometimes you just need to be there to hit the accent, the beats.
Yeah.
And so thank you for that. And thank you for your willingness to be a part of this. And thank you all for joining me for another Real Talk with Pastor Waller. This is Christopher Johnson. You will hear all three of the persons that are running, and then you will make your decision. There are a lot of decisions to be made on May 19th. Who's going to represent us at the Congress? Who is going to represent us here in this community at the state level? And you're going to let your community know and let this city know that you exist. The only way the state, city, or the government knows that you exist is when they look at the exit polls and see who came out. And they will know. Please know this: everybody finds out not what you voted, but if you voted. And if you voted, that means there's going to be more attention paid to your street, more attention paid to your services in your community. I'm not calling that right, I'm calling that real. When you vote, you tell the powers that be that you and your neighborhood matters.
Hmm.
When you don't vote, you tell them to go give their time to somebody else. My goal is to make sure that we let everybody know we in Uptown matter. So to come on, we're getting ready to go to God in prayer. I'm looking forward to seeing you in church on tomorrow morning. God, I bless you and I thank you for the opportunity to meet another young man who is serious about you and serious about the work of the kingdom and the work in our community. Lord, we pray that you would help us to understand who you are using, where, and why, and help us, Lord, to make decisions that honor you and that work for our good. Lord, I pray for Chris. I pray for all who are running for these offices. I thank you for the varied interests in our community. But I also pray for May the 20th, when all the decisions have been made and when we all get back together, because every person that has been on this show is an important part of the answer in the city of Philadelphia. Now, God, as we go throughout the rest of our day, go with us, stand by us until we meet again. It is through Christ and for his sake we do pray. Let us all say, amen. Amen. Listen, love you much. God bless you and God keep you is my prayer.